Rav Kook writes in Shmona Kevosim, and the 8 volumes of 8 notebooks that he gave into the hands of Rav Nazir Zitzal, Rabbi David Kohen, and authorized him to edit and organize the material as he saw fit. And this later became known as Oroth HaKodesh. The very first Piska, the very first statement in the very first volume, discusses something which relates to what we just discussed. I said a moment ago that it is only by study of Torah that a person can achieve and these various levels of correct appreciation of life, of the world, what is important, what is less important. It is only by study of Torah this is possible, and more particularly by studying those areas of the Torah that are conducive to a person reassessing the world around him and looking at things in a manner which is decidedly different from the way most people look at the world. And this does not happen by any other study. This cannot occur. This will not, this impact, this effect will not be brought about by any other form of study, only by the study of Torah, and particularly what Rav Kook Zitzal refers to here as Chokhmat HaKodesh. I'll read a few words. Chokhmat HaKodesh hi na'ala mikol chokhmah. It's actually, it occurs to me I may be able to share the screen with a few words with you. Just one second. I may be able to show this to you on the screen. Just one moment. I have in as a Word document, I have the Shmona Kevosim of Rav Kook. This is in Chovas Het, Piska Kof Nun Pleth 159. The last of the Shmona Kevosim, and this is the very first Piska in Oroth HaKodesh. And I will now share this with you. So Rav Kook writes, Chokhmat HaKodesh hi na'ala mikol chokhmah. Some might claim that Chokhmat HaKodesh, being referred to by Rav Kook here, is specifically what we generally refer to as Kabbalah. And it may be, I don't think it's obvious or certain that this is necessarily the only thing that Rav Kook had in mind when he wrote this. I tend to think it should be understood in a broader sense. Chokhmat HaKodesh really is Chokhmat HaTorah. And without going into a discussion now with regards to Kabbalah and different approaches and systems of Jewish mysticism, etc., it is clear that there was an ancient tradition of mysticism in the Jewish world amongst Rabbotanu, Ba'alei Mishneh Talmud, Hazal, spoken about explicitly in the Mishnah and Hagicha and other places, Ma'aseh Merkabah, Ma'aseh Bereshit. I frankly do not believe that anybody today knows exactly what those limudim, what those studies were. Much has been written about this. We won't discuss this now at greater length, but more insightful and spiritual and mystical understandings of the world, of reality, of life are part of the Torah. That much we can say with certainty. And by studying the Torah in its entirety, all areas of the Torah, Mikra, Mishnah, Talmud, Agadah or Haggadah, one can achieve very varying levels according to a person's abilities and his devotion and his how much he applies himself, etc. One can attain various levels of chokhmah, which can only come about from a study of the Torah. The reason I mentioned that this is not the case, or rather that it has to be understood as referring to more pnimi, more mystical aspects of the Torah. The reason I state that is not because halakha is not part of the Torah or it's not important. That's entirely not true. And in fact, an in-depth study of the Torah, of halakha, of Torah Sheba'al Peh, is most certainly connected to this Chokhmat HaKodesh, the Chokhmah of the Torah. Because there are all kinds of assumptions and first principles which one can only truly begin to understand and fathom by an in-depth study of Torah Sheba'al Peh, of halakha, which underpin the entire Torah. Like any legal system, a law is based on some value or some concept. A system of law can only be based on a system of values. So Rambam, Rav Kook writes here, Chokhmat HaKodesh, he na'ala mikol chokhmah. It is of a different order of magnitude altogether. It is of a higher order than any other chokhmah, any other form of knowledge. Bazeh, shehi mehapechet et horoson, v'hatechuna hanafshith shalom aleha, v'karavam le'ota haromevut shehi ba'asma mit'asemet bah. In other words, the only type of study, of investigation, of knowledge that transforms a person, that transforms a person's will and desire and outlook and understanding and approach to everything. It basically resets the internal program of a person. It's like it resets the software of a human being. Human beings left to their own devices. Well, we know what the Torah says, that in Sefer Bereshit it speaks about that Yasser Lev Ha'adam Ra' Kol Hayom. In other words, the human being, unrefined, uneducated, left in his raw natural state, can easily be viewed as just another kind of animal, which is precisely what many people believe. with good reason, because it is true that if you bring up people to view themselves as animals, that's precisely what you will get. No surprises. Or as my father, Abi Mori Alaw Shalom, used to say, if you plant potatoes, you cannot expect to get roses. That's probably a translation of some folky wisdom from another language, but that was what he used to say. And that is absolutely true with human beings. If you teach them, if you educate them, if you indoctrinate them, essentially, that they are just animals who happen to be more intelligent than other animals, then you will end up with a certain kind of human being, and you will end up with a certain kind of society. And we all see around us every day the outcomes and the results. The only way to change this is not by studying philosophy, although you would think philosophy is in many ways the closest to Torah in terms of examining and trying to get some kind of a grasp on reality, on life, and see things in a more correct sense. But in actual fact, the benefits of studying philosophy are wildly overrated. It's not that there's no value in it. That's not true. There were many clever, intelligent people who studied in philosophy, who wrote philosophy, and there are many true insights in some of their writings, as there are also plenty of both vacuous and pernicious statements and understandings. But in essence, it does not and cannot change a person. It cannot create a different kind of human being. What Rav Kook writes here is that studying the Torah, Chokhmat HaKodesh, hi na'ala mikol chokhmah bazeh shehi mahapechet et harason v'hatechuna hanafshit shel amadeha lekaravam le'otha haromemut shehi ba'asma mit'asamet ba. That the Torah itself, the Chokhmah of the Torah itself, derives from a certain source, and some of that rubs off on the person who studies Torah. You have to study Torah seriously, with an open mind. When I say an open mind, I mean that you have to understand that the Torah is there to teach you and to remold you, not the other way around. There are people who study Torah, they dabble in the Torah, but they don't come to the Torah as an open and untouched book, a blank sheet of paper. They come to the Torah with an attitude, with a set of values, with ideas, with assumptions. Frequently, usually, ideas and assumptions which cannot be reconciled with the Torah, because they come from another source. So you have to first approach the Torah like an empty vessel. I wish to know what is true, and I'm not going to teach the Torah what it should think. The Torah is going to teach me what I should think. Rav Kook continues, Masha'enken, kol ha'chokhmot ha'olamiyot, all other types of knowledge, study, אף על פי שהן מציירות עניינים נשגבים, יפים ואציליים, even though they may describe all kinds of very beautiful matters and ideas even, אין להם אותה התכונה המפעלית. They do not possess this facility, this ability to change a person, to reset a person, to create a certain kind of human being who is truly in communion with Hashem and sees the world through different eyes. Mif'alith, in the word that Rav Kook uses, techuna mif'alith, in other words, this creative and this ability to change the reality of the person studying the Torah. Lahamshich, there's a certain slight act of editing that the Rav Nazir did here, simply changed the order of the words to make the sentence a bit easier to comprehend. I'll read it as it appears in front of you right now. להמשיך אל ערכן את כל המהות העצמית של ההווה בהם. In other words, the Torah draws and bonds a person with the ideas, the arachim, the concepts of the Torah, so that when one is studying the Torah, one therefore necessarily comes into contact with these ideas, these concepts, these first principles about the world, about life. ובאמת אין להם יחס כלל ליתר כוחותיו ולעצמיותו של האדם חוץ מכוחו המדעי בלבד. In other words, one can study mathematics or philosophy or history or anything at all, and there is much to be learned in all of these fields, and there is much that is of benefit to mankind by studying, shall we say, history. There is much to be learned from history. One is attempting to understand the world, the creation, humankind on a more profound level. But studying history will not make a person create a different kind of human being. It will imbue him with certain insights, yes, and knowledge, and therefore understanding of many things that another person without that knowledge, without having studied these things, will not be able to understand. But it will not change the essence of the person, because there is no particular connection between that information, those studies, except for the intellectual aspect of the human being. That's koho hamada'i levad, the Kook writes here. He has the koho hamada'i, that is the intellectual capacity to study something and understand it. But apart from that, it does not connect to any other part of his soul, of his being. وَتَعَمْ هَدَوَارْهُ, the reason for this is as follows: Ki kol inyanei hakodesh mimakor hayei hayim hem ba'im. The source of all things to do with the Torah. Rav Kook uses the term here, inyanei hakodesh, all things to do with Kodesh. They come from the source. They derive from the source of all existence. Miyasod hayim hamahawat hakol. ויש בכוח התוכן המקודש להוות המון ברואים לאין תכלית. Now this koach, this source, in other words, Hashem, is the source of all that is. And if this source, if Hashem can bring into existence hamon b'ro'im la'en tachlit, all manner of creations and wonders, heaven and earth, obviously, therefore, it is a small matter for the study of the Torah, which comes from Hashem, which is intimately connected with Hashem, to bring about a change, to create new realities and remake a person who comes into contact with these ideas, with these concepts, with this system of thought and of philosophy and of ethics, which is the Torah. Whereas all other types of studies, secular studies, and they do not possess this facility. They do not create new realities. You can study physics as much as you like, and you may understand and know a great deal, but you do not. Physics does not create anything. Physics is describing, or is attempting to describe, what we observe. You see, you observe that which is in reality, and you try and make sense of it, and you can describe this in a formula, and you can test it, and you can see that it's true. So now you have described successfully that which exists. But this does not make the physicist, in any way, doesn't change him. It doesn't make him a different kind of person. You cannot possibly uproot the negative parts of the person's inner life and recreate him in a different, in a totally different mold, from a different mold. So studying Torah is the only way to bring about that which Rambam discussed here in, if we go back to the Rambam here. Here in Hilchot Deot, Rambam said, it is correct and proper that a person, what kind of a person? A person who has been recreated in the image of, and is now a new kind of being, a B'riyah Hadasha, because of his connection to the Torah. Such a person should be ma'avir al kol divrei ha'olam, should have very little be concerned should not be very concerned with most aspects of this world, that for most people are the main thing. But he knows, he understands these are not the main things. So if a person slighted you or embarrassed you or didn't lend you something or what have you, or a certain thing that you were trying to achieve did not quite work out the way you planned. If it's something which is midivrei ha'olam, in other words, day-to-day mundane concerns, then you should not take it to heart very, very much. Shahakol ethel hamivinim divrei havel uhavai. People with understanding, and this can only be people who view things from a Torah perspective. Most things are divrei havel uhavai, divrei ha'olam. And therefore, enam kedalin kom alehem. There's no logic. There's no justification for getting too worked up about these things. But take note, Rambam is talking here about divrei ha'olam. What he means to say is what we just mentioned now: mundane, material things which really are of little consequence or no consequence at all. Whereas, if we're talking about not divrei ha'olam, but divrei Torah, or in other words, we're talking about ideas concepts, principles, according to which we live and according to which people should live, those are not divrei ha'olam. If we're talking about the breakdown of society in the ethical sense, morally, philosophically, intellectually, that is not divrei ha'olam. That is stam. That is not something of no consequence. That is something of tremendous consequence, the greatest possible consequence. And about such things, a person should get worked up. As Rambam mentioned earlier in Hilchot Deot, with regards to anger. Perek Sheni, Hilchot Deot, Rambam writes here about anger. Halacha, well, or Gimel and some other books. V'chen haka'as, de'ara ahi ad lima'ov. It is a very negative midah, form of behavior. V'ra'ui la'adam shitrahek mimena ad hakaseh acher. V'lamed asmo shelo yichos. And he must train himself not to be angry. V'afilu al davar shera'u lichos alo. In other words, there are things that it is proper to be concerned with, to care about, but even then your anger should be tempered. And therefore Rambam continues, وَإِمْ رَسَى excuse me, وَإِمْ رَسَى لَهَطَّيْلَ عِمَا الْبَنَا أُبْنَى بَيْثَوْ. And if it is necessary, he appreciates the need to drive home a message by showing, shall we say, members of his household or other people, or ala thiburim imaya parnas, if he's a person in a position of leadership or influence, and people have to see that this is terribly wrong, and this can only be expressed by showing great concern and even anger. And therefore he has to show himself to be angry so that people will get the message. So he must play out this role. But he himself should not be overly worked up. So there is this distinction, as you see here in Rambam, between things that are important, things that are not important. To be angry about things that are unimportant is completely wrong and misguided. To be angry and to show concern and anger about things which are of consequence, that is necessary and correct, and necessary and proper. We shall stop here for today.
Thank you, Rabbi Bar-Hayim. We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. We would also like to suggest the following opportunity to our viewers. If you identify with Rabbi Bar-Hayim's message and would like to sponsor or dedicate a video interview with the rabbi in honor or memory of a loved one, if you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.